Hi, my name is Mark Bleesk and I'm an industrial arts teacher in Lockport, Manitoba for Lockport School. I am doing a lesson on the chop saw, and the chop saw is a very important tool in the shop because it is the one that's going to give us the end cuts on the board, the cross cuts. It is the most efficient tool for doing cross cuts in the shop. We could do a cross cuts on the table saw, which I'll do in another lesson, but right now the chop saw does the job the best, most accurate way that we can in a junior high setting. We call it a chop saw, but the actual name is sliding compound miter saw. Chop saw seems to be much more generic and most of the kids call it that anyways. Compound mitre saw, another name that we would call it. Again, with any machine in the shop, a student should ask an adult, a teacher, instructor, whoever there might be, for permission to use the machine so that that instructor or whoever it might be knows what's happening and understands that that student is using the machine at that time. I'm going to go over some rules that are junior high, senior high related. That might not be them. You might think, oh, that's a bit much for a home shop, but they'll keep you safe. I've been doing this for 43 years and I still got all my digits. So I think I've been doing it a proper way. I've taught almost 13,000 students and not one accident, and I want to keep it that way. So here are the rules of the road for the chop saw. First of all, the blade goes up and down. This is locked right now. In order to get it to go down, I just give it a little click and it comes down. So now I can move it up and down. This machine cross cuts straight across, and that's what I'm going to do first, because remember we have this board that we've been working on. We did the jointer planer, thickness planer, the jointer planer again, table saw, and now we're using the chop saw to cut the ends off, and that's what we're going to do. I'm going to bring this back, and I'm going to line up where I want the cut to go. So I'm going to bring that down right to there, and the way I brought it down is I just held down the thumb and this at the same time. Most chop saws work that way. This is a Festool chop saw where it has a little bit of a locking mechanism. Most chop saws have a button up here that you have to put both of them at the same time. It's a safety feature, and it's a very good safety feature to make sure that you don't turn it on by accident. All right, so we got it and we set it to where we want to cut. I just want to cut a little bit off the end there, say about 1/4 inch or more, a little bit 1/2 inch, and I would determine the length of the board that I want to have. Next thing I want to do is I want to lock it down. Now every chop saw has a different locking down mechanism. This one works by pushing it down, lifting it, and locking it in place. There's other ones that screw down. That's the kind I prefer. It's much more positive. But everyone works. You just have to know how to use them. And make sure you know how the locking mechanism works on your chop saw before you use the chop saw. Now, so many guys that are out there that aren't in junior high or think they know better, use the chop saw, one hand here and one hand here. I guess that works okay, but there's a lot of guys that lose their fingers that way. It's better to use the hold down. That's what it's for. It's designed to hold it in place. And in junior high setting, I say put both hands on the saw. That way both hands are safely occupied. I keep on saying that mantra over and over again. Make sure your hands are safely occupied. If I have my hand over here, is that safely occupied? I don't think so. Maybe if I put it over here on the other side of the hold down, but still use the hold down. I prefer for junior high to be here. In fact, I won't let my junior highs use it any other way. When they ask me, Mr. Bleesk, may I use the chop saw? I'll go like this. And they'll understand, 2 hands on the handle. They do that right away. So now I'm ready to cut, and I get my feet positioned so I'm nice and comfortable, and I'm not going to fall backwards, and I'm not going to fall into the machine. I have balance. You're not going to stand like this so you can fall backwards. That's not a good idea. One person in the yellow area, always, in the danger use area, one single person use area. Bring it down, and now I'm going to start it up. Now you notice when I cut, I didn't rush through it. I didn't chop it down like I was doing some kind of a karate chop on the thing. I just went through methodically. Now on an end cut, it's very easy. If I was cutting in the middle of a board and it was, say, maple, walnut, cherry, some hardwood, purple heart, something very hard, the tendency then is for the board to want to collapse on itself and grab a hold of the blade. What I would advise to happen then is that you bring it down and you go one cut about halfway through the board and another cut all the way through the board, or even sometimes 3 cuts to get the job done. Otherwise, what's going to happen is the blade's going to bounce on you. When the blade is absolutely razor sharp, that's not going to happen as much, but as the blade gets used a bit, you have to understand that you have to accommodate for that. You can't be changing the blade every 5 seconds to make sure that it's super razor sharp all the time. It's going to have a little bit of not being perfect. In that case, you have to go halfway through the board and then all the way through the board, and you can have a much, much more accurate and safe cut. All right, so once that's done, and then I'm going to flip it around and cut the other side. It's basically the same thing. Another thing that you need to realize is that the board must be tight against the fence. If you've made a good cut on your jointer planer and a really good cut on your table saw, that is going to have no air gaps in there whatsoever. And if that's the case, and I've measured it and everything's in the right spot, then I lock it down. Now I'm ready to cut. Now here, take a look over here. I got a little piece of sawdust here. That's okay. But what if that was a big chip of wood? You might want to remove that, say if it was a chip like this, sitting back there like that. You would want to remove that, of course, when the blade is not moving, so that that doesn't grab and throw all over the room. Okay, because it'll throw back and come back at you. This machine has its own vacuum system, which works for about maybe 75% of the sawdust, and then you'll have residual sawdust as well. If there's no dust collecting system on the machine, wow, there's tons of dust from this machine. We also have these two dust collectors which are connected to the dust collecting system, which I don't have on right now because it's just too noisy for us to film with. But when you have that going, this is really quite, the dust is kept down. In my own shop at home, I don't have that, and the chop saw is a very, very dusty machine consequently. So now I'm going to make the last cut. Double cut on that one just to show you how that works. Another thing I tell the students, if they're doing a perfect cut, in other words, they want to have it super accurate, leave it down, leave the machine down until the blade stops turning. Then let it up with both hands on the handle. The reason that we do that, I like to do that with the students especially, is that on the upcut, when you lift the blade up, it sometimes nicks your wood. If you keep it down, you made that cut through, it's going to be more accurate, especially if you're doing like a whole series of cuts where you're doing 12 cuts or 8 cuts, and you want to have that all to be fitting together on angles, picture frames, that sort of thing. So it's very important to make it accurate. This machine does something else too. I'm just going to put this board off to the side. I got some less expensive pine here, and I can now do angle cuts. I can go and lift this at the back. Now, on every machine it's different. There usually is a lever at the back of some sort, and then you can then adjust your angle. If you look in here, you can adjust it from 45 degrees going one way and 45 degrees going other way. And then, of course, there's 0 in the middle. So that allows you to do some pretty nice, accurate angles so that you can make boxes and frames that are 8-sided, 6-sided, 12-sided, 24-sided, depending on what the angle is that you want. And in this case here, I'm going to make this to 30 degrees, put it right on 30 degrees, and then lock this down. And as I said, every chop saw is a little different. You have to know your machine as to how it adjusts in that manner. What's nice about these Capex machines made by Festool is that anywhere there is a green dial or whatever, that's an adjustment dial. And you just have to know what adjustment it is there for. So now I'm ready to make a 30-degree angle cut. I'm going to bring the board into place. I just want to cut off the very end of it right there and hold it there, lock it down. 2 hands on the handle. Make sure that I have a good foot placement and get my, now don't start it with the blade touching the wood. If you do that, it's going to ruin your wood. So you lift it up from the blade, wood itself. I have 2 hands on the handle, so even though I'm exposing the blade now, I am safe because I have 2 hands on the handle. If I had a hand down here, I don't think I'd feel as safe. I'm up here like this with a junior high classroom. I could be much safer letting any junior high student do this while I'm operating something else. I don't have to watch them exclusively because I got a table saw operating at the same time and a jointer planer and a thickness planer all at the same time. So here we go. Let it stop. Bring it out. Now I can clear out the debris. Do not clear out the debris until the blade has come to a complete stop. And in this case, you can see it. Okay, you can see the blade when it has come to a complete stop. And what I have now is a 30-degree angle. And I'll be talking more about what we can use angles for in another lesson about building boxes. All right, that's one of the ways we can do an angle. I'm going to put it back to 0. There we go. And now I'm going to move it over this way. A little sawdust in there. I want to be able to see what the measurement is. I lift it up, and again, every saw is a little different. As to sometimes there's a screw you have to undo. And in this case, we have to lift up a lever, and now I'm locking it in place. And in this case, I'm going to go 30 degrees this way. It actually locks in place at 30 degrees. At 22.5 degrees, at 15 degrees. So this gives us okay, I can get a 6-sided figure, I can get a 4-sided figure at 45 degrees, an 8-sided figure at 22.5 degrees, and a 12-sided figure at 15 degrees, and of course, any other sided figure depending on the math that you have to figure out for how many, what the angle would be for how many edges that you want to cut, or sides that you want to cut. So now, I can make an angle going the other way. And that's if I want to make a larger frame of some sort. Again, make sure that there's no air gap. And in a junior high situation, I would of course have asked permission of the instructor that's there to make sure that I set it up right and that I'm cutting it properly. In my classrooms, I always ask the students to ask twice. I get them to ask once to set the machine up, and second time for me to check that they set it up right. It takes me 5 seconds to check it. I say, yep, you did it right, go ahead and cut. Or no, just a minute, you're gonna hurt yourself if you do that. Or no, you're gonna ruin your piece if you do it that way. It gives me a second chance to make sure that the student has done it properly. But asking permission is paramount in a junior high classroom. Don't just go without any proper permission from a teacher. So now I've got a 30-degree angle going that way, which allows me then to make a picture frame or whatever it is that I want with a 6-sided. I can make one 45, which is a 4-sided, and so on and so forth. So the chop saw is a complicated machine, but simple in what it actually does in the end. It just cuts a board. That's the same with all these machines. They only have one moving part. You have to be concentrated on that one moving part, which is the blade. Where is that blade? What is that blade doing? How am I in relationship to that blade? Am I safe with my hands? Are my hands safely occupied? Do I have goggles on? Do I have anything that get caught in here? If I was wearing those hoodie with ties on it, I wouldn't want them to get caught into the guard like that. I have no idea what would happen. I don't want to be around if that would happen. So I always double check to see that my students have their tassels all put away and their hair done up and all that sort of thing. Nothing hanging, sleeves rolled up, so that they're going to operate this machine in a safe manner. All right, that's it.